I'm sharing 2 cards with Tim Holtz brand new vault release from Sizzix. Hey everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. Scrapbook.com sent me these really amazing products. This is the Vault Noteworthy dies. I am going to use this for one of my cards today. This is the Vault Floristry. I'm using that for one of my cards today. It has a little embossing folder inside. This is the Vault Atomic Retro. I don't use this one today, but I definitely want to use it because it's so cute. And then this is the Vault Edges that I use on both of my cards today. So let's start with the first card. I'm going to do some ink smooshing, but I'm doing it with Distress Oxide sprays or Distress sprays. This is Salvaged Patina, and I am creating a 5x7 card. Actually, both of my cards are 5x7. So this is actually going to be a distressed background, but really colorful. I'm going to dry between each one. Because I don't want the colors to mix. This is a little bit of Peacock Feathers, Distress Oxide spray. I'm going to add a little bit around the edges. And I'm going to do a kind of a fun technique. After I do this ink smooshing, we're going to do some ink blending with it. This is Spray Stain in Kitsch Flamingo because I thought I had a Distress Oxide spray and I do not. So Spray Stain works just as good. I'm going to dip that, dry it. Then I'm using a little bit of picked raspberry and some water. I'm adding water to all of this because I want it to be thinner. And that was in Distress Oxide spray. I'm going to dab off some of that. And I just wanted a little bit of that darker color. Now I'm going to come back in with the coordinating ink pad color. So Salvaged Patina. And I am very, very lightly, not with a ton of ink, going over the edges, going over the colors, coordinating colors that I've already ink smushed. So here is the Peacock Feathers. I'm going to go around those edges. And if you notice, it's softening everything up and giving it this really kind of soft glow almost. I think it turned out so pretty. So Kitsch Flamingo, I'm going to go over and you can see I'm dabbing off a lot of that ink. I don't want a ton of it. And I'm going to, again, go over where I ink blended, even where it's mixing with the other colors. And it's just making everything softer. Here's a little bit of that picked raspberry. Again, really, really light-handed. I cannot stress that enough because I don't want to change the ink smushing. Then where I have that white area, I'm going to bring in a little bit of Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink. But look at how soft that looks. It's so soft, but it's almost kind of glowing to me. I think it's so pretty. I'm going to come in and just lightly ink blend where I have those white areas, not blending too much into the colors because I don't want to make it funky, but it fills in that area nicely. I love that. Then I'm using Walnut Stain for all of the edges because I do want this to be distressed. That's the look that I'm going for. Adding a little bit of grunge to this really bright background. So I will be using the Vault Floristry dies, and this is that little embossing folder that comes with that. I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. I'm just going to put it in 2 spots on my card. I want to give it a little bit of texture, but I don't want it everywhere. Then with what ink is left on my brushes or on my blender foam dome tools, I'm lightly going over that embossed area. Well, I had to add a little bit of ink, but I'm going to let some of the opposite colors bleed into some of the other colors, which I think turned out really, really nice. Then I thought it would be fun to add some background floral images. Some of them I'm just doing a single color. So I'm using Peacock Feathers. I think I use Picked Raspberry and Kitsch Flamingo. And I am just going to add this kind of a shadow effect in the background. I want it to highlight the flowers that we're going to be using from the Vault Floristry dies. So these flowers are from, I think they're called Blooming Beauties from, oh gosh, Paper Tray Ink. And it's kind of a layering stamp, like I'm stamping all the stems and then now I'm coming in with the flowers to add on top of that. But look at how pretty that's looking. I like that some of the colors are overlapping. So some of that teal is overlapping the pink, or the pink is overlapping the teal. And I'm just using an acrylic block because that is way faster than using the Misty. This does not need to be perfect. I am spritzing after for the most part, once I ink it up off camera, I'm giving it one little squirt with my distress sprayer to get the Distress Oxide ink a little bit wet. That's just going to give it a little bit more of that watercolor look. It's not going to have such a definition. Some of it might be a little bit blurry, which is what I was going for, but you don't have to do that step. Bringing in some of the smaller leaves here and flowers. But again, I really love how it's overlapping some of the other colors. Again, this is giving us a backdrop of more florals besides just the die cuts that we're going to be adding here. And I am going to throw in a pop of yellow on this, which is going to it turns out so pretty against that fun teal and pink. So let me finish up the last little bit here, a couple more of these. If part of the leaves are in the pink and part of it's in the teal, I do add the two colors for the most part. Some of it I let overlap the other colors, but any way you do it, there's no wrong way to do this. But you can get the idea of what is going on here. So, and I'm just cleaning off my stamp with my little craft cloths. That's not what they're called, but I can't think of what they're called right now, from scrapbook.com. But they are perfect. They're a microfiber cloth and they come on a roll like a paper towel, but they're reusable. I love it. Okay, I am using some Peacock Feathers Distress Spritz and picked raspberry, and I'm just doing a little bit of splatter, not a ton. And then I also will do fossilized amber, but I don't want to over splatter this. I want just a little bit of shimmer and shine. So that's what I've done on the back here. And then I can set that aside to dry while I start working on my die cuts. I have die cut this from Mixed Media white cardstock from scrapbook.com. Again, these are the flowers and leaves from the Vault Floristry. So I'm going to use squeezed lemonade to ink up my flowers. I was deciding, how is it going to work? It works better having the ink smushed and water on my background and then just kind of pulling my flowers through. So that's what I'm going to do. Then I'm doing pink flowers with Kitsch Flamingo and picked raspberry, and then the leaves will be the Salvaged Patina. These little tiny leaves actually will be spun sugar because I want them to be a really, really light pink. So that's what I'm going to do. Here's the centers to those yellow flowers. I'm keeping the flowers really kind of simple. These are fun shaped. I am going to give them some dimension, and I'll show you how I do that here in a minute. And you definitely want to hang on for the next card because this is definitely a feminine card. And then the next one would be a masculine card. I forgot I had spun sugar, or excuse me, I forgot I had Kitsch Flamingo spray. So I did the ink smushing and then I'm like, no, I have the spray. I can clean that. I don't have Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide spray. So I need to get that. I do not have that. I thought I did, but I could not find it. Now here's the picked raspberry for the centers of those yellow flowers. And I'm just dipping them and pulling them out with my tweezers, and then they will just dry as I'm working on the next flowers. This was a really quick way. If you don't want to do this, you could just ink blend your flowers, or you could ink blend the cardstock, then place the dies on top and die cut it out that way, or color it any other way that you want. Here is that spun sugar. I had a spray of that, so I'm going to run those little flowers those little leaves through there. And then I will work on my final leaves. And then while they're wet, I'm going to take my Pick Pro tool and just lightly bend up the edges of the flowers and leaves because I don't want them laying just flat on the background. I want them to have some dimension. I'm not adding any foam adhesive behind anything. So if you want to add dimension, so here's a little tip. If you want to add dimension without adding foam adhesive and you have flowers and leaves, just bend up the edges. just a little bit, and that totally works. I'm going to glue the centers to the flowers, just using some liquid glue and my Pick Pro tool. I love this tool. It is my favorite. I have a couple of them because I use them all the time. Then you have your little stabby end that you can slide and move your things around. Here are my pink flowers. I'm going to add the centers to those. And then these guys here will lay on top of the centers of the flowers. And I think I used all but one of the largest pink flowers. I wanted more yellow than pink. But here I am. I'm going to bend these guys up, those little guys up with my hands. And then here's my Pick Pro tool. I'm just going to lightly bend the edges. And they're still a little bit wet. So I was a little rough with that one and tore my cardstock because it was still wet. But I glued that on and it's going to dry just fine. So again, just carefully bending those things up. Okay, now I'm using the Vault Edges. This has the alphabet die in it, you guys, which makes me so happy. And I have die cut the word hello twice from scrapbook.com's mixed media black cardstock. It's a really thick cardstock. So gluing it together twice gives you a nice thick sentiment. And I'm going to do it in this bold black because against all those bright colors, it's going to look fabulous. So I'm going to glue those together and then we can start getting this card together. I do trim this background down slightly smaller than an A2 sized. So when I adhere it to my white card base, it has a little bit of a white mat. I have already laid everything out. I'm going to glue my flowers down and then I can come back in and glue in my leaves. But I like where they're placed, and so I'm just going to kind of take it from there. I kind of have to lay everything out ahead of time so I can kind of see what is going on. But look at that yellow against that background. Is that just not so beautiful? I love it. It's such a fun pop of color. And this was inspired on Pinterest. There was just like digital papers somewhere, and it resembled like these fun colors, and I just loved it. So that's where I got my inspiration from. Sometimes I like to look for just fun, easy, like fun, colorful backgrounds and things like that. And so this was just absolutely beautiful. Let's adhere the sentiment down that says hello. You could add another sentiment underneath it. You could do, you could add any kind of sentiment, but I just like the simple hello. You could turn this card into anything that you want by adding a sentiment to the inside. So sometimes I tend to leave my cards simple that way, so it could be whatever I need it to be. Let's glue that down. And I am not going to add anything else to this because we already have the Distress Spritz, which adds some shimmer and shine. And now you can see this adhered to a white 5x7 card base. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, our next card. I am taking the Bricks stencil and I am using the opaque crackle texture paste for this, and I am just doing it kind of in the center. This is a stencil from scrapbook.com. We're going to make this masculine card now. I love how this turned out. As that dries, it is going to crackle, so that's setting aside. Now these are the dies from the Vault Noteworthy. This is like one of the folders, and the word just went out of my head, but you keep your files in it. So I will fold that in half in just a minute. I am ink blending it with Rusty Hinge, a manila folder. That's what it is. I think that's what this is. Then I'm ink blending with Vintage Photo around the edges, just to give it a little something extra. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring that stencil back in because I cleaned it off. And I am going to ink blend a little bit with that Bricks stencil and the Rusty Hinge. So I'm going to do that here in just a second. This is the super cute clipboard. I'm ink blending with Walnut Stain. This is like the wood part of it. This is my favorite die out of this. I just think it's so cute. The size of it is so cute. Then there's some fun circles and shapes and, just kind of office supply looking things. This is the piece of paper. I'm using antique linen. That's what's going to go onto the clipboard. I'm just roughly ink blending with Walnut Stain for the clipboard pieces and this little paper clip type thing. Here's the stencil. Let me just go over it just a little bit. So what I'm going to do for that little paper clip and the metal part of the clipboard is I'm going to use some, oh my gosh, my brain just forgot what I'm using. Oh, foundry wax, statue foundry wax. So you definitely want to hang on for that. I'm ink blending with some fun blues because I love that with oranges. So Uncharted Mariner and Salvaged Patina. I'm just going to ink blend up. This is a little stamp. I've just pulled out little pieces from the dies. This is not everything from the die set, but I thought, you know, I just kind of want to add these fun shapes to this background. Let me clean up my work area here. I need to ink blend something else. I've got an oval piece, a circle. It just looks like little torn pieces of paper. This little rectangle has like a little torn edge. And then I'm going to ink blend just a little bit with walnut stain again, distressing it, toning down the bright blues, but this is going to be a very blue and orange card. And I'm going to do some more like fun ink, playing with ink on this background. Once that crackle paste dries, the bricks are all going to look crackled. It's going to give a really fantastic texture in the background. And then we're going to add some ink to it. So I cannot wait to share that part with you, but it needs to dry. I accidentally squeezed entirely too much of that statue foundry wax, but I am covering the top piece of the clipboard, and then we have that little paper clip piece there. I'm going to heat that with my heat tool until it melts, and you have to heat foundry wax, otherwise it will just wipe off. But it gets so shiny and it kind of bubbles when it melts, so it's so pretty. Then I decided, after I cleaned up that huge blob, not before, I'm going to add a little bit of that foundry wax to all of these pieces. I loved that color. I thought this is perfect for this rustic masculine card. So I am going to add a little bit of that, and then I will just use my heat tool to heat all of these guys up too. It's a little bit messy with your finger, but to me it's the fastest, quickest way. And I didn't care. I wasn't trying to cover all the edges or anything. I was just kind of literally putting it on willy-nilly. And then a little bit on this folder. So let me get my heat tool. I'm not going to show all of these, but I just love to show how it melts because it's so pretty. Just using my tweezers to keep my hand out of the heat and then getting those nice and melted. Okay, so now let's glue our clipboard together. I'm going to glue it together at the top. Then I'm going to sandwich that little piece of paper in between, and then I can adhere that to the clipboard itself. You guys, this die is so cute. I just love it so much. It's just darling. I love miniature things like that. They're so extra cute. Then I'm going to add this little tab onto the folder, and I love that Salvaged Patina against that rusty hinge. It is so pretty. Okay, let's add some Uncharted Mariner now that that background is dry, and then some Salvaged Patina. Just ink blending onto that brick, letting it go off the edges just a little bit. But I don't want this to look like a blob. I kind of want it to bleed a little bit. So I added Distress Oxide, Distress Spritz, and back up, I'm so sorry guys. Distress Oxide sprays in Uncharted Mariner and Salvaged Patina, and then I'm getting it wet and letting it kind of bleed, adding more water so the edges have this kind of watercolor look. Sorry for the confusion, you guys. Okay, now I'm going to ink blend the edges with the rusty hinge. I want to kind of go over the bricks a little bit. I don't want white space, so I kind of want to get rid of that. And then a little bit of walnut stain on the edges, just to give it more of that grungy look. And then now I'm going to splatter with a Distress Spritz. I'm so sorry, guys. And I will do that in Uncharted Mariner, Rusty Hinge, and I think I did a little bit of Fossilized Amber. Nope, just those two. But not a ton. Again, I don't want it to be all splatter, but I do want to have a little something on there. And then we're going to have little shiny pieces. Now, again, using the Vault Edges alphabet dies, I die cut two of them again, glued them together. And I am going to adhere this down. Of course, it says a note, which I thought was really cute on that clipboard, and it fit perfectly. So I'm going to adhere that down. And then I'm going to slide this little paper clip piece over. And then I just have some of those shapes that I'm just going to kind of place in odd places, but it just more so for the fun color and just, you know, just kind of a layering design. No, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I am going to pop that up with a little bit of foam adhesive. I will adhere that folder down. The clipboard has 1mm foam adhesive behind it. And I'm just going to put that at an angle. And then I can just start adding some of these other little pieces that I have. This is a little stamp, and I thought putting that little oval right in the center would be cute. Then I have this other oval I'm going to add down here. I'm just kind of trying to disperse the color everywhere. That's more it than the shapes necessarily, but the color. I thought I kind of wanted that going off the edge, but I'm going to change that here in just a second. Just using some liquid glue to adhere those pieces down. I'm going to tuck that circle in down here on the bottom left. Let me move that over. Doesn't that foundry wax look so pretty on that stuff? I love it. It almost has like a dull shine to it, which is really pretty. Let's take a look at this up close. Look at all that texture. Those super cute dies from the Vault Noteworthy dies. They're just darling. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope you enjoyed these projects. I hope you felt inspired, and I hope you guys have a really wonderful day.